So I'd like to call the planning board meeting of February 6, 2025 to order. Persons who wish to to attend are attended in person, or well, not tonight. Will just be remote, fully remote. There's the link to the website is on our website, and instructions and guidance on how to join the meeting remotely. Please note that in-person meetings will not be suspended or terminated if technology problems interrupt the remote connection. So we have called the meeting to order. We'll introduce planning board members and staff. Top of the list this evening is Eric Henderly. I'm Rick Noonan, David Rosen, Jane Ramson, Greg Catamatori, our planning director. We have Beverly Bookin and Douglas Cook. So first order of business under A&Rs, site plan reviews, and preliminary subdivision plans is an application for site plan review approval under GZO 5.8.2C submitted by Murlock LLC, care of Glovsky and Glovsky, for the expansion of a parking lot at 64 East Main Street, Assessors Map 58, Lot 26. So I don't know that we have representation, but
I believe John Judd will be representing the applicant.
Okay. Have we seen John?
I think he's in as a panelist. And if anyone else oh, there we go. There's someone else that would like to join. We'll promote Thad Samasco and Miranda Samasco.
Yeah. John is there someplace. His camera off.
Greg, I have a presentation I can go through if you like.
Okay, great.
Great. Good evening, board. Thad Samasco, architect. With us is Miranda Samasco is the attorney for the project, and John Judd, I know you know him well, is here as well. He was the civil engineer. And I would apologize when I'm not there in person tonight. I'm on the wrong Cape tonight, but so it will be. If I can share my screen, I would like to show you, run you just through our presentation, if that's okay.
You should be able to share. There you go.
Great. Let me get to a full screen view. So a client named Denise Merlino has bought the property 3 years ago. Zeke's was the diner downstairs, has closed the business, and she seeks to change, to add an additional apartment where Zeke's was. There were 2 existing apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floor, 2-bedroom apartments, and then the ground floor diner we're proposing to convert to another residential unit. I know you probably all know this well, but the view of it is, so the brick building on the left, where we would be maintaining, and then the additions that are off to the right, we would raise those along with the outside stairway and that ventilator, and add basically in that same footprint, actually slightly reduced footprint, put a new 3-story addition on. I'd note that from the back of the building, it's because of the slope of the hill, it's actually it's views as a 2-story building from the rear side. So the plan is to basically do a gut rehabilitation of the building and add this addition. Things like the dumpster and all of that, of course, would go away. And then even the front area here, we're adding a small, almost like a garden terrace to the front of the building to sort of clean it all up. And we are maintaining, of course, the brick building. So there we go. Next one. So the plan is, again, not to expand the footprint whatsoever, but just to remove this stairway, and then out back into the side of this hill here, we would propose a 4-car carport that's sort of buried into the ground as the hill goes up. The site is largely, the pavement here and the building here is basically unchanged. It's just we would be putting the carport back in this piece back here, as you see in this drawing. John can discuss if you have questions regarding drainage plan, but basically he's capturing the water that comes off this hill here in a trench here, as you can see in this detail. Landscape wise, we're proposing a new fence on the perimeter. There's not a lot of place to put plants, but to the extent there are, we've got some cranberry viburnum and ornamental grasses in this section. We'll have an opportunity to actually have a pedestrian walkway, some steps that kind of come up through here to get from the street back up. And place for a screened trash area back here, carport in this gray area, some grasses along in this narrow strip here. And as I mentioned earlier, a little bit of a paver terrace here, small, low sitting wall here, stone wall, and some additional vegetation, all within, the footprint of the property, of course. So the existing, if we show you the existing plans, basically, again, there's not a change in footprint. The diner becomes a unit, 2-bedroom unit. And this is sort of, you see shaded here, ground floor. And then from the back side, you'd enter either at a level that would be at grade from the back side, which is also a 2-bedroom unit with a deck that looks out over the landing and out to the harbor. And then you'd enter from here, and basically within your unit is a stairway that gets you up to another 2-bedroom unit. So basically three units stacked. And this also has a balcony with a pergola over the top of it. Most of the lighting is we tend to do recessed lighting where we can, or at least dark sky compliant fixtures. There's not a need for heavy lighting on this site. It's more just typical kind of residential scale lighting. And on the exterior, we're going to take and match the brick of this building on the base here, and then have a more traditional, what you might expect in Gloucester, set of materials, basically clapboards and trim, and lots of doors here for view to the water. I think the building measures 27 feet by the zoning definition. It's only a couple stories from here, 20 something feet tall, low 20s tall from this backside. And then the carport, as I mentioned, it's you can see from the side view from the road, it's sort of buried into the hill. It's got just a simple flat roof on it. And it's basically just a way to shelter cars for nights like tonight. And trying to just, rather than have us look at the cars in that area, it seemed like a nice place to, offer a nice amenity to the tenants to put the carport in there. Again, the lighting in there is recessed within the actual carport, so you won't see any spillover into neighbors. So that's a quick summary of the project. Happy to answer questions, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. I didn't see a slide to talk about water runoff generated by the carport.
Yeah, John, can you address that?
Sure. Can you pull up that slide? Thank you. It looks like he has the site plan up, Mr. Chairman.
Zoom in.
Yeah. So what we're proposing toward the back, Thad has designed a more or less a very it's almost like a flat roof but it does, you saw in the profile view, it does slope back toward the back of the property. And we're proposing a 3-foot wide, 6-inch deep Riverstone edge. And we have a detail for that, Mr. Chairman, on the plan that shows infiltration.
Yeah.
So the dimensions on this carport are 22 feet by 39.5 feet. And what we're trying to do is get that water back into the ground. The site, for the most part, is all impervious, with the exception of where this carport is going, is proposed, I should say. And that's what that's the intent, is to provide shelter for the tenants exactly for a day like today, as that points out, and allow for that runoff to infiltrate for this gradual slope off the roof of this carport. So that's the Riverstone has quite a bit of voids in it. These are 2-inch diameter and would allow for the infiltration.
Thank you, John. Beverly? You're unmuted.
I assume that it meets fire code because you're taking out that outside stairwell that I thought might be the second egress. As do you want to talk about
Yeah,
how
I
you
have.
met fire code?
Sure, happy to do that. The building will be fully sprinkled as required to be as a 3-unit building. And there's a provision in the code that allows for a single means of egress for if you have 4 or fewer units and it's a sprinkled building and an occupancy load of 10 or fewer. And that's the case here. In fact, the 3rd floor unit, which is actually it's only 1 story off the ground, actually has its entrance down at the grade level, that 1 stairway. So it does meet the fire code, yes.
I assumed it did. I just thought it'd be helpful for everybody to hear how you meet it.
I appreciate the question, of course.
David?
So looking at this plan, the entrance to the parking comes right off of Haskell Street. And then the carport is at a higher elevation. So it's sloping up.
Sorry, Dan, I probably wasn't clear. The carport is actually at the same elevation essentially as the driveway,
Okay,
but the hill now comes up. It comes uphill, front to back of the carport. So we're just carving into that hill.
got it.
So from the neighbor's side, the neighbor's not going to actually have their view blocked by this carport because they'll be significantly higher. In fact, the 6-foot fence that's coming across here basically would obscure this from their view.
Okay, and can you go to the plans that show the different units again?
Just happy to.
So what's the crosshatch area in this plan?
That's the area where we're removing the existing footprint and adding new footprint, but it is in fact all one unit. So you'll come in a front door, have a kitchen, eating, living area on the right here, and a couple bedrooms over here within the existing sort of diner. What was the existing dining room, the diner? So they're 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, some pantry. They're good sized units. I think they're 1,560 square feet or something. So they're generous units. We think in this location, that's warranted. And they're, a nice place to have just even a couple of chairs out front here, taking in the view.
Okay, so the crosshatch area is actually part of the ground floor unit and each of the units above that as well.
Yeah. So we probably cheated. I think this is a Board of Appeals plan where they like to see what's new, but yeah, it's all 1 unit per floor, total of 3. Yeah.
All right.
Sure
Okay,
thing.
thanks.
Of course.
Any other questions from board members? Beverly?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Jane.
Okay. Back to David's question about the parking area and it being carved into the hill.
Yeah.
What is the existing topography for that now? Is it already a parking area that's carved into the hill, or is it just a hill?
It's just a hill. See if I have a photo. This is it now. This area right in here.
Okay. Can you go back to the plan?
Sure.
Okay, so the parking area is showing the 4 spots under the carport. You're going to be digging down about how much?
Yeah, I think the grade here is elevation 28, and this down here is elevation, looks like 23. I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah, maybe I can jump into that.
Please, John.
Sure. So the top left, the existing grade is, we have a spot shot there. It's about 27.5. The proposed grade in that back corner is 24.2. So it's just a hair over 3 feet of cut there. On the other side, we have existing grade just about the same at about 27.5, and we're at 24.2 there as well. So it's about a 3-foot cut, Jane. there was a picture, photo that the name is Heasley and Cruz. That's the shingle building.
Mhm.
So they have a fence now that's back here that's I think 5 or 6 feet tall, and then there's a topper on top of that, and then there's this.
Oh, okay. I wasn't understanding this photograph. I get it now. So that shingles building is the back of the lot. That's the abutter at the back of the lot.
Yes,
Correct.
yes,
Yep.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That timber garden is shown on our plan. That's basically going to be taken away to be replaced by the carport.
I see. Okay. And the abutter has no issue with that?
They were notified of the ZBA hearing, and
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Greg or Eric, any other color?
So again, this went through the relief from the zoning board for certain variances, as well as a special permit for the 3-family and the change of use. We did forward the application to Public Works and Engineering for their review. Received no concerns over the design that John has advanced. The only kind of caveat was, as we deal on maybe a little bit more aggressive of a snowstorm on a day like today, just to make sure that there's no impact to the public way with snow removal, something that we all deal with. But again, there were no specific concerns with the design of the plan.
Fair enough. Beverly, did you have a follow-up question?
Oh. Why, is my hand up?
Well, you're scratching your head or waving your hand, so I didn't.
Oh, I can't see
checking.
me. I can only see the plans, but okay. No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Fantastic. Hearing no questions, I'll accept the motion. They're muted.
This is site plan review.
Oh, yes, thank
Correct.
you. Just for, yes, sorry.
Yeah, so we have to follow the site plan review ordinance 5.8.7 review guidelines and approval, right,
Yes.
Correct.
Greg? Yes. So but just before I make a motion, I just want to put it on the public record that items A through M have, to me, seem like they've been addressed, which includes lighting, fences, structures, slopes, paving, utilities, which is not applicable, pedestrian safety, vehicular safety, orderly and reasonable internal circulation, and minimize and mitigate impacts of coastal flooding, just to quickly run through them. And Greg, you don't see any issues with any of those
I don't.
review guidelines, approval
Correct.
guidelines? Okay,
Yep.
great. Then, hold on one second. Need an agenda. I move that we approve the application for site plan review approval under GZO 5.8.2 for the parking lot expansion at 64 East Main Street, Assessor's Map 58, Lot 26.
Second.
moved.
We have a motion by Jane Ramsden. We have a second by Doug Cook. We need a roll call vote today.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
Member Remsen,
Yes.
Member Bookin,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Rosen.
Yes,
Okay, it's unanimous.
nice design.
Yep.
You have
Is that-
definite improvement to the area. Love the
Yeah.
small units, love just the whole aesthetic improvements. Looks great.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
But we'll miss Zeke's.
Yeah, we miss Zeke's.
Yes, yes, it's a fair point.
We also get a third unit on a site that can manage it too, which is in keeping with where we'd like to go as a city.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ted.
You all have a good night. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, public hearings. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law 41 and the rules and regulations governing subdivision of land in Gloucester, the Gloucester Planning Board to consider a 2-lot definitive subdivision plan filed by 20 Main Street LLC entitled Chisholm Court Extension at 20 Main Street, Assessor's Map 7, Lot 94. So I will open the public hearing. And we have representation by Mr. McCormick. And the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So this is a definitive plan. This is a zoning freeze plan. I want to be just totally upfront about that. The purpose of this plan is to freeze the zoning, so that there's some certainty as the property owner pursues a development on it. I'm sure you're all aware that on a parallel track, there is a multifamily application, which is making its way through the legal process right now. This is not that plan. This is not that development. This is a totally independent 2-lot subdivision on the same property, the purpose of which is to lock in the zoning at the time. Now, we had intended to file a plan that didn't require any waivers. I think we ended up asking for 2 waivers from test pits and from I think an estimate of cost of construction for purposes of the bond. We believe that everything else on the plan complies with the rules and regs without the need for waivers. I had discussed with Greg the other day that probably the next step here was to send this out for a peer review by Weston and Sampson, I think. So I did not have Hayes Engineering come tonight to talk about the substance of the plan, sort of thinking that the board would want to hear from its peer reviewer on that. But I'm happy to talk about the contours of the plan or some of the details if that is appropriate.
So Greg, do you want to sort of bring us back up to date on this?
Sure. So let me just quickly grab a little outline. 1 second. Just because it's been a while. This application was filed last year. We went through an initial presentation, and in the time frame of about April, we did receive response from the engineering department with a series of questions that were then turned into a scope of services for a peer reviewer to consider. We did receive a scope and quote from Weston and Sampson, I believe on April 24th of 2024. And so that's kind of where we kind of left things, with a number of continuances each time, with the applicant continuing to extend the time for the board to act. The last time that it was continued to a date certain was the meeting of January 16th. And then we continued to this evening, and I was able to connect with Sean earlier in the week. So at this point, we've kind of heard that initial presentation. We probably can do that again post peer review, just kind of familiarizing everybody with the aspects of the application, or potentially do that this evening. But again, I think at this point, if the applicant is going to fund the peer review, that's something that we would then contract with Weston and Sampson. And I did kind of reach back out after I spoke with Mr. McCormick earlier in the week to get a sense of their time frame for putting this into the queue for their review. I would anticipate it would probably be no less than a month or so, where they would provide probably an interim initial feedback if there are any clarifying questions before they can come to a conclusion on the applicability of the subdivision standards and engineering practice in terms of compliance of the plan. So that we would probably be looking at 4 to 6 weeks before we would return to the board. And that's kind of, again, where we are. If the intent is to take the application through to a decision of the board, again, An applicant is, upon receipt of an approved plan, can either record or not record. It's up to them. It's a development option for the property. And it does have those other impacts that Attorney McCormick has pointed out in terms of protecting the zoning on the property for a period of time, depending upon the proposed use, future use in an application. So certainly any other questions of the board, the applicant's here, but if that's what is intended to happen, then we would await a deposit and probably think about, a reasonable time frame to continue the discussion at a future meeting of the board. And I think, there's certainly probably some questions from members of the public as well. So once we determine, what that time frame might be, it probably would make sense to also allow some questions from the public.
Beverly?
I'm totally at sea on this one. Why is the existing zoning at risk? And why is it necessary to have a 2-lot subdivision for a project in which the 2 lots will be, for tax purposes, will be one? I just don't get the need to do this. So maybe you can explain the technical reasons for this.
Sure. So that's actually a good point that I should have raised at the outset. I at least haven't identified a zoning change that's in the queue that we're particularly concerned about. That's not always the case with zoning freeze plans. Sometimes there is a very specific thing that the property owner is worried about, but that's not the case here. It's really it's really a sort of an insurance thing so that we know what the what the lay of the land is, what the requirements are while we're looking at ways to develop the property. I think in the and I don't want to stray too much into the other project application, but I think it is an underutilized site. I think something's going to happen here. I think it's probably going to be the multifamily that was approved by the city council. But we just don't know. There is some, I think, I was informed today that there has been a lawsuit commenced against the property owner. Regarding the other development. And so this is just a way for a property owner to sort of know what the law is, what the rules are, so that the there's some certainty in their use of the property.
Beverly's not satisfied.
So
Yeah.
this is taking up a lot of volunteer time and staff time for you, particularly when there was nobody at our last meeting. So, first of all, my first question is there a time, I don't know if this is for Greg, but is there a time limit on this, or do we just keep stringing it out, which I'm not a fan of, especially since the other project is in appeal? And what assurances, I guess, Sean, for you, do we have that, it's not going to be a burden on staff to follow up with you to make sure that we, see you at the date when whatever next hearing is continued to,
Well, so there is a timeline set by the statute that can be extended by written agreement. And right now we are, we have agreed to extend out, basically an equal number of days. So the clock as it started to run in April has basically been extended.
Yeah, I understand the mechanics of the clock. I'm just saying, how long has it been already, and how much longer is this going to go? Are you just going to continue, every time?
Yeah, well, no. So the theory behind the continuing in the past was that, and I think my sense was that this was shared by at least some members of the board, was that it was confusing to have two applications going through the approval process for the same property at the same time. And it sort of made sense to everyone to put this off to eliminate some of that confusion. We don't have the city council voted in November on the other application. We still don't have a written decision from the city council. So, I guess I would have hoped that we would have been done with that process by now. We're unfortunately not done with that process yet. But so it seems like sending this out to a peer review now is the way to keep it moving. Like that's the next step. So we're sort of here saying let's do that, and let's have a substantive hearing when the peer review comment comes back.
And so
Okay,
just to be clear, based on the continuance to the January 16th meeting, the time for the board to act was extended to April 2nd of 25. I'm thinking that we'll probably look at expanding that again, but there is this kind of, there could have been a different approach this evening if the applicant had not appeared. I think the board would certainly be within its right to say, I think we're done here. We don't have an active applicant, and we have a time frame to work within. We've had a peer review scope developed. There hasn't been response to that. I think we're in a different position at this point, and it is kind of this, as long as Attorney McCormick has pointed out, this kind of mutual agreement. Either you don't have something and you're up against the time frame and you need to act, or we try to work for an agreeable time frame and a cadence of the information that we anticipate and expect. If there's a deposit for that peer review to occur, then it's been put on our side, in terms of the response to the application, which again, I think there should be a reasonable time frame agreed to this evening to extend beyond April 2nd, because we may be looking at, kind of a March time frame, and then there might be some iteration and discussion before the board may come to a conclusion. But then, we have a new kind of line in the sand that we're going to either agree that the board has enough information to act on that date. If they don't, they take one action. If they do, they take another. So I think that's kind of where we are.
yes, I would agree.
Beverly, do you have
I
a
have a
comment?
comment and a question. So I still see this as a solution for a non-problem. I just don't understand what the problem is about the zoning and the two lot subdivision. I really don't. But more to the point is, what is a peer review for? The project that as approved had substantial peer review, did it not?
So that was a different project, different design. We have an engineered plan submitted with the definitive submission that received a separate review from Engineering and Public Works with comment. So again, it's a different application. They're certainly, we have to review them in that kind of lens. Obviously, we've learned a lot about the site from the other review. This scope of services is a much smaller scope based on the more simplistic approach of the project, from a utility perspective, all those different things. But it is still something that would be reviewed, because ultimately the board has to make a decision as if it is going to go forward.
Okay, but I mean, normally you don't have to do peer review on a zone lot division, because it's, do you see what I'm saying? I just don't get what we're peer reviewing, but.
Yeah, well, there's substantial infrastructure that's proposed with a definitive subdivision. It's still, albeit a short roadway with dimensioning and engineered design for a roadway for 2 lots. And that's what's going to be reviewed, so that if this is approved, someone could construct according to a plan that's been approved.
But the thing is you're saying that if the approved project for some reason gets sidelined by an appeal, which is what I gather has been building for some time. We're reviewing this site generically we're doing this peer review for a generic facility on the site that is the maximum that the underlying zoning would allow. Is that kind of what this is?
Well, I mean, it's a specific plan that's following the subdivision regulations for design standard to create, again, we can all say this is
silly.
I'm going to be very careful in my words. Probably a fair assessment is probably not the best use of the site to design roadway infrastructure on a not very large lot off of Main Street. But that is what would potentially meet the subdivision standard, and they're eligible to apply for a subdivision. So, if something is going to be constructed, it may never be constructed in this fashion. It has to follow, the guidelines and regulations of the planning board. So they've taken those and submitted a plan. Again, I can let Attorney McCormick talk more about, why they're doing what they're doing. But it's a tool for them to create some predictability. I think they've already expressed that it's not their preference to build what they're proposing.
Okay, I will take your word for it. I just don't understand.
Well, Beverly,
It's basically a contingency plan, right?
Yeah, I understand, but it just seems
because like
needlessly
someone could
complicated
introduce
to me.
a zoning change at city council like tomorrow, and that would, potentially impact this. So
I'm not an expert on Massachusetts land use law, but as a land use planner, I don't get this. But okay, I'm going to take Greg's word.
Well,
for it.
and that, Beverly, that's kind of why I'm like, how long is this going to drag on? Like, at some point, we just need to vote on it one way or another. Peer review is fine with me because it's not our money or time that's being spent, although it is some of Greg's time to review the peer review. But it also shouldn't be Greg's time to follow up on this, right? So it was concerning, Attorney McCormick, that nobody was here at our last meeting, and it shouldn't be our staff's problem to track that down, to find out what was happening or going to happen. So.
But if this plan if we approve this plan, this 2-lot plan with the little cul-de-sac, it doesn't prevent the other plan from going forward after the appeals. Is that correct?
That's
Correct.
correct.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't see the harm in approving it once it's gone through its peer review, and the other one will work through its process, the appeal process.
I don't see the harm. I just don't understand the rationale, but that's fine. I'm on board with whatever the planning board wants to do it.
So there is an example in recent history, and I don't want to get too far afield here, of the Backshire Overlay District, when a buildable parcel was identified on the eastern side of Atlantic, proposed for a 1-lot buildable, and the city council rushed to prevent development on the eastern side prior to conveyance. And so there is recent history of the council acting on a whim and changing zoning while something was marketed. So, any other questions or comments? We are in a public hearing setting. I'd like to turn it over to public comment at this point. So anybody who would like to speak in favor or against, we do have one person in the attendees list, Pamela Steele. I'd ask you to state your name and a full address for the record, and keep your comments to 3 minutes if that's possible.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is 20 Main Street, correct?
Correct.
I'm just trying to find out about the wall, because when I was attending the meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about the integrity of the wall, and I haven't heard anything since then. And now it looks like the whole project's going to be changed. And how does this affect all the work that was done beforehand, the 200 people that wrote in from the neighborhood, the people that spoke up at the meetings? Like, how does this all tie into what you're doing tonight?
Who wants to take a stab at that one?
Sure, I can take a stab at that one. Entirely different project, and maybe it would not maybe be helpful to put maybe at least just the plan up, just so that we make it clear to the public what we're actually talking about. Separate application filed with the planning board. The other 24 unit multifamily building was filed with the city council. They've acted on that. There was a lot of discussion and peer review about different aspects of that project itself. This project has a different footprint. Mostly what's adjacent to the wall is roadway at near the existing grades, with lots that are situated off to the right of the property. So let me, if I can just call that up. 1 second.
I have
Greg,
the
I
copy
have
that's
it
in
if you want me to
the
pull it
folder
up.
too.
You
Maybe
have it,
Sean
Eric?
should. I do, but Sean, you're saying that you have it as well?
I have it up.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe you could pull it up.
you can go ahead and share.
And while they're doing that, Ms. Steele, would you mind stating your address?
Yes, I was just going to mention that I hadn't mentioned it. Sorry about that. 10 Pilots Hill.
Violet's Hill, thank you.
You're welcome.
So again, if you look at the plan that's on screen, if you're at your computer, what is in front of the planning board in this application is kind of the Hammerhead roadway. It would create lots adjacent to that with kind of proposed structures. Those are really kind of cartoons. They're not any kind of final design. What the planning board looks at is mostly the roadway. They show some retaining wall, low retaining wall. It's nowhere in proximity to the retaining wall that was discussed extensively in the multifamily application. So again, an applicant can file 1, 2, 3, 4, as many applications as they want, if they have the time and the money to follow them all to fruition. So this is an alternative that they filed near the same time as the initial filing of the multifamily application. But again, it's a different project. The planning board will review it under its standards. The other project was reviewed under some of the planning board standards as well as the standards of the city council. I hope that helped.
Well, have the abutters been notified of the second new plan?
This plan was noticed at the time of the initial filing, and I've been over this with a number of folks from the public. The requirement for noticing of special permit applications, variance applications, subdivisions, they have an initial public notice in the paper as well as a butter notification. And then from that time forward, you follow the process is following the agenda. At every meeting that we have a discussion on an application, we continue it to a date certain that it'll appear on the agenda. If at that time the applicant isn't well prepared to advance, we do try to notice on the agenda if it's a continued item and it'll be continued further. At that meeting, it's discussed. The board makes a decision on the date, again, certain to continue further. The last continuance on this application was on January 16th, at which time, in the absence of the applicant, we continued it to this meeting. And all those agendas are posted 48 hours in advance of any meeting.
So this doesn't start all over again because it was already presented at the very beginning when the
Correct.
two. Okay, thank you. I appreciate
Yep.
it.
Thanks, Pam.
Yeah.
Thank you. So next under the attendees is Salta, permission to speak.
Hi, Sultanat Berdikeva, 33 Middle Street. Just a couple comments. I think, first of all, there's so little information. According to Attorney McCormack, the Hayes engineering folks aren't there. I think for the public hearing to have like a substantive hearing, the public needs to know in detail the information about this project. So I think that it would be fair for the public to have another hearing where we get a chance, where we have a chance to speak more substantively on this project. And the second thing is any project that is zoning compliant, I think would be less controversial and respectful to the abutters and the neighborhood. And so with that, I would like to ask if this project will be zoning compliant, will not require any variance changes. And also, given the fact that you're just freezing the zoning, and I totally agree with Beverly Bookin about why this has to happen. If you're giving us only very like kind of a strange information, like this is just freezing the zoning, but on the other hand, we're not sure what exactly you're going to build. Is it going to be housing? Is it going to be commercial building? I think that kind of information would be very much appreciated, because as abutters and other members of the public are very much, the broader community and downtown are very much concerned about it because the other project has been extremely controversial. Thanks.
Thank you. Sean, do you care to make a response to that, or?
Sure. So this is not a application for any zoning relief at all. It's just an application under the subdivision control law to build a road and to create 2 lots where there is only 1 lot existing today. If the road gets built, and it would require a new application to actually build buildings there. Now, it may be that if they're residential buildings, it's just a building permit application. It may be that there's zoning relief required. We haven't looked at that in depth because we're just not there yet. At the moment, it's a preliminary step to that, which is just get the road approved, get vet the engineering that has to do with the drainage and the stormwater associated with the roadway, and the drawing depicts 2 buildings, and it's really just to show how the buildings would be situated in a way that complies with setbacks. They're not detailed buildings, and they're not really conceptualized as a particular use at this time. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, Sean. Anybody else like to speak at this point before we go into next steps as far as dates and things? Beverly?
Hi, Beverly Palmacci, 8 Commonwealth Avenue. If I understand what was just said, what we're looking at is a proposal for a project that could be built that would obey all the setback rules and whatnot. There'd be no variances required. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
So this is, this is an application to divide the property into 2 lots. In order to have a legal subdivision, we need to show that we can create a subdivision road which complies with the standards relating to roads. So this is not a, it's a different statute than the statute that deals with structures and uses, which is Chapter 40A. That is the statute that deals with, special permits and variances. We're under, Chapter 41, which really deals with division of property and construction of roads.
Okay, so this is a drawing of a road for subdivision.
That's correct.
Okay, and everything else that's drawn there, we're just ignoring because it doesn't come into play
It's sort of an illustration.
of something that could be,
Yes.
but isn't. I mean, it's not real in terms of applying for anything. It's just the road that any of us should be paying attention to. It's just that road.
Yes, and there are other aspects of the materials that were submitted that deal with drainage, stormwater,
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Okay, not hearing any other comments or people raising their hands. So let's talk about dates. Jane is interested. And so Greg, give us a little sense on sort of timeline again.
Yeah, so after having a discussion on Monday, I did have the engineering department and reach back out to Weston and Sampson. They will take a look at what they quoted, many months ago. We'll probably get a fresh letter on that to present to the applicant. Once we have deposited funds, we'll have to contract. That does take about maybe a week and a half. And then again, it'll be a matter of them diving into it, providing some initial feedback. And if there's additional information requested from the applicant or any response, and then typically a response to that. So we're probably looking at, I would say, a 4 to 6 week timeframe.
Okay. So easily into April, past the April 2nd date, obviously, yeah.
I will know better once I have funds deposited and can get a contract underway. But I would think at this point, I would think that maybe the earliest would probably be the second board meeting in April.
Okay.
So what's that date? Anyone?
Second.
17th. April 17th.
Yes.
Sean, does that work for your team?
Yes, it does. And I'm putting it on the calendar right now.
All right. Any other questions by board members before we?
I think just Sean, if you'd commit on the verbal record and then maybe follow up with a letter with the time for the board to act. I think it would be reasonable to maybe put another 30 days beyond that point, just to be sure that, and again, we can continue again if need be, but kind of extend to some sort of late May timeframe for the board to act, and then we can go from there.
So, Mr. Chair, we would agree to a further extension of the time within which the board has to act on the definitive plan for 30 days from April 17th. And I will submit a letter to that effect to comply with the statute.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCormick.
Great. And so for members of the public, what we're talking about is extending or continuing the public hearing to April 17, after which the peer review materials and everything should have been submitted and reviewed. And then making a decision on this division of land one way or another. But I have a technical question. If we decide to approve the subdivision of land, would that affect the current project?
Only if they choose to record and act on the approved plan.
And
So-
how long do they have to do that? Do they have to record and act on it in a certain amount of time after a decision?
I'm trying to remember the time frame to record.
I don't have it off the top of my head either.
Yeah.
But it's like months, not.
Yeah, it's probably at least 6 months.
6 months. 6
Okay.
months is the date that.
Yeah.
That's what comes to my head.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah.
Okay, ready for a motion then?
I am.
Okay, I move that we continue the public hearing for the 2-lot definitive subdivision plan filed by 20 Main LLC entitled Chisholm Court Extension at 20 Main Street to April, our regularly scheduled meeting of April 17, 2025.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Jane Ramsden. I have a second by David Rosen. Roll call vote, please.
We'll take that over. Chairman Noonan,
Yes.
Member Bookin,
Yes.
Member Remsen,
Yes.
Member Rosen,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
and I think that's it. It's unanimous.
Thank you. Mr. McCormick, thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight.
You bet.
Drive safe if you're driving.
Not going
We're all
anywhere.
remote.
Okay, next under comprehensive plan update, Laura Smead of JN Goldson to lead a review of the revised comprehensive draft plan core theme strategies. And there she is.
Hi, everybody.
Floor is yours, ma'am.
Let me share my screen and we'll pick up where we left off. So at the last meeting, we discussed mainly core themes 1 and 4, because that had the most overlap with the sub-consultants. So let me just recap quick the red line changes that I made after the discussion last time. We agreed on some that these 3 additional strategy ideas were fine with some wordsmithing, so I incorporated wordsmithing into those 3. I did overall wordsmithing throughout the entire document for more, if you will, like general language or citing things as examples. So in 1B1, it starts with a more general sentence about supporting expansion of industrial parks, and then I added like 4 examples. So I tried to go with that flow. I tried to use more words like evaluate. And in goal 1.3, where I noticed that there were a number of things that are very similar and could be consolidated, I did that. So 1C2 has to do with streamlined permitting, but there was another one that had to do with streamlined permitting and so forth. So I'm trying to put things together where it's basically saying the same thing and using more wording around examples of how that could be implemented.
Yeah, and if Laura, if I could just jump in real quick, I think you know, one of the things that we really all agreed on at the last meeting is that there's wordsmithing that needs to be done, and it's better to do that you know, through kind of one voice, and we don't want to spend our time doing that as a planning board, but really as a planning board, we want to focus on the goal of reviewing all the community feedback that's been gathered through this process and making the final decisions on, you know, what is a priority to keep in the plan based on that community input. So I'm just going to suggest, Laura, that we go on to the point where we need to continue to make those decisions, and for the planning board, but really for any of the public attending now, I think it's important to know that this is a comprehensive plan looking at a big vision for the growth of the city over the next 10 years. It is just that, a vision. It is not a mandate. It's not to say this must be done, this will be done. So really all of these strategies are, if the opportunity is there, if the resources are there, but this is ideally where we would like to head it as a community moving into the future. So let's just focus tonight on what's in and out. And when we're done with that, staff and Laura's team will work to make sure that there's consistent wording, that everything is you know, finalized and polished. But I think the best use of our time and the expertise here in the room is to really make the call based on all this input of, okay, what's the priority to stay in the plan?
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I mainly, you know, wanted to show that there was already some wording and wordsmithing being done in response to the prior meeting. But jumping to core theme 2, I think there were a few stragglers left in core theme 4, but why don't we just go through core themes 2 and 3 and then pick up those last few that were left in core theme 4. So core theme 4 is all about I'm sorry, core theme 2 is all about thoughtful, engaged city leadership. So this is public facilities and services oriented, infrastructure and things like that. Under goal 2A, where we're sustaining city operations by hiring strategically, investing in staff retention and recruiting employees who reflect the demographics of city residents, there are 2 additional strategy ideas to rank and discuss. One is exploring board and commission members being involved in the appointment and approval process for more oversight, leadership, and accountability. Another is evaluating additional staff capacity or positions to coordinate and facilitate board and committee meetings and training.
So in being involved in the appointment and approval process for what?
I interpreted this as being involved in the appointment and approval process for, it's like if there's a vacancy on a board.
So volunteers?
Mm-hmm.
Additional, okay. So I think we need to clarify what we're talking about. And yeah, that's fine as long as that's what we're talking about. But I mean, I don't want to have, I don't think Conservation Commission members should have a lot to say about who's appointed to the planning board necessarily,
Right.
But
I mean, this seems like an internal policy for the administration to administer, and this is not a master plan item, in my opinion.
actually, I would agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say this is out, 2A.
I agree.
And in terms of
Same with the next one.
yeah, well, there are some boards that don't have staff support, some volunteer boards. And they are limited in how much they can get done because of that. So I do think this is a worthy goal, actually.
But is it already captured in 2A2? Because you're already identifying capacity gaps.
Yeah, especially if you added something in there, you know, comma, in support of understaffed boards.
Yeah, I think that the main thing to address from a strategic standpoint is, yeah, there's boards that are losing the ability to hold meetings for lack of quorum, and we really need a pipeline of new members to help make those areas of the city function, which are, you know, critical.
I thought we were talking about something totally different, which is paid staff.
And then in addition, the staff support for boards that are dealing with technical issues.
Yeah, so you're talking, when I say understaffed, I mean boards without paid staff.
Yeah, I think that is an issue that should be discussed from a strategic standpoint. And just the ability to have volunteers on boards and kind of having a pipeline of people who are going to want to serve on boards in the future, you know, looking at how important that is for the city moving forward.
Okay, that seems like a separate topic.
Yeah, but I think this discussion here on these 2 additional items are, you know, fall directly under the purview of the community development director. I mean, functionally, that's where this lies, right? I don't know, again, this is awfully granular, sort of setting policy for a job description of a role that we already have. And again, I just think it's, you know, a little bit of
an action item rather than strategy.
Yes. Thank you, Jane.
You're so welcome.
I agree. And these additional strategy ideas, you know, are things that came in from meetings with boards and committees. So, you know, they're not at the same level of, you know, they haven't been through as much process and thought as the ones in green and that we already have been working through. So that's, you know, that's just kind of something we're seeing with the additional strategies, I think.
Again, I think my hope was that, you know, we spent 15 minutes on 4 sentences here, And my hope was that this kind of discussion would have been happening offline, and not taking up 7 or 8 people's time, sort of discussing one person's input to put a line in a master plan, right? Again,
Right, well, that's why there was the pre-work survey. And so if one person on the planning board did indicate that that additional strategy idea, they wanted to discuss it, then it made it on the list. But there were some that nobody said they wanted to discuss, and so we didn't even put those on the map. So that's why those were included. All right, are we ready to move to goal 2B?
or
All right, goal 2B, increase community participation by increasing access to the decision-making process by centralizing information and strengthening communications. So 2B2 was still in the middle. So we're expanding the city's communication methods. For example, establish a monthly newsletter to advertise upcoming events, meetings, and opportunities. I took an attempt at wordsmithing there per the last discussion.
Yeah. I mean, yes, we should be communicating as well as we can, clearly. I'm not sure a monthly newsletter is the way to do it. But could we just say expand the communication methods to not advertise, but like communicate upcoming events, meetings, opportunities? I mean, maybe we need to do a better job on the website, maybe, I'm not sure.
I
I
guess
think this
my-
goes
And it
back,
makes me think that that then is just duplicative of the goal, and that, you know, the strategies are having centralized information on your websites and having the events calendar and some of these other ideas. So if a newsletter idea is either too specific or not sure if that's really the way to go, then maybe we should just take it off.
it goes back to 2B1. You know, it's a website is crucial to all information. The better the website is, the better all this kind of stuff is. So you focus on that.
one spot, not 3 different spots,
Right.
or multiplying the information 3 separate times through 3 separate portals.
Yeah.
Beverly, did you have a question?
No.
Very good. So 2B2, do you want to just combine it to 2B1?
Yes.
Sure. I'll flag that to combine with 2B1.
I mean, just the way, you know, you sign up for calendars, you could sign up for, you know, information, like whenever the planning boards have a meeting, you get a little notification or something, but that's doing a better job on our website, not having to collect everybody's email address and write a newsletter and have a staff person that writes a newsletter and all that.
Okay.
All right, 2B4 is running bipartisan voter education campaigns to increase the city's voter turnout, especially for local elections.
Goal versus action item?
Probably.
Yeah, who's doing that? Who's
Well, I mean, maybe the city clerk's office, something, the folks who run the,
So again, that's the kind of
So
sentence
maybe-
you need to flip by saying the goal is to increase the city's voter turnout, especially for local elections. You know, maybe by running bipartisan voter campaigns. So. Have we identified that our turnout is low? I don't even know that.
The existing conditions profile, there is something on there like it's three out of 4 registered voters participate in federal elections, and something like 1 in 5 participate in the mayoral city council elections.
Is that different than other communities though? Is that like super low
No.
compared to normal?
no, that's,
No, it's kind of similar because of the off year election cycle. I mean, this is our elections kind of are after, you know, in between a governor's election and a presidential election. So it's like an off year. So that's why people bring up in the like meeting in the boxes, other surveys are like, we should increase the local turnout somehow. And that's how this got into this goal.
Okay, well, there's nothing wrong with a good goal. I mean, it is a good goal, obviously.
Okay,
All right, so 2B7 is one in the middle. So explore a public-private partnership with the Gloucester Daily Times to expand all residents' access to affordable local news. I think that's, I'll just stop the period there.
That's a tough one because it is true that the Gloucester Daily Times is expensive and it's a good source of news and not everyone can afford to subscribe to it. And it's really truly a problem. I'm not sure, again, explore a public-private partnership is the answer. I mean, maybe it's the answer. I don't know anything about it. But I don't know what that means either. Does that mean the city gets a subscription and lets everybody use it? I mean, but
Makes me wonder if there's something like through the library that could be done. Maybe there's something the library already does do in terms of providing access to news resources.
yeah, so again, it seems like an action item with a sentence that could be flipped, you know, expand residents' access to Gloucester Daily Times, however that is best done. I don't know.
well, it's a
The,
for-profit subscription business, right? And so
Yeah. Yes, I
I don't
understand.
know how I don't know how our master plan is intended to, you know, partner with a newspaper to expand their circulation, right? I mean,
That's their master plan.
that's their master plan, right?
and
Right.
the Gloucester Times is available every day at the library, along with the Boston Globe, and it's on a tape. That's kind of a given. Libraries do that.
Right.
And maybe it's not necessary.
Yeah, I mean, these are sort of the tricky ones. I mean, that's why they're still yellow. And we, so do we want to leave it in, or do we feel like it's already covered to the extent that the city is realistically and feasibly able to do it already kind of through the function that the library already serves?
Well,
I would say, again, it goes all back to the website. If the website has information on how to get access to this kind of stuff, provides that kind of link, so that people can understand that. And that goes the same with 2B8, to have information on what positions might be open, how to get involved, all that kind of stuff that the website really needs to be able to control and to be able to have all that information on it. That's my perspective.
I would agree.
That's fine with me.
So are we keeping these as separate strategies, or are we kind of consolidating this under the types of information that are going to be on a centralized website?
Type of information, yeah.
The latter.
Okay. So we're consolidating with 2B1. All right, so 2 additional strategy ideas. One is evaluate financial resources and marketing to support communication efforts for schools, boards, and commissions and the arts.
Same thing.
Yeah. So this is consolidated with 2B1.
Yeah.
The idea is
I mean,
This is
better
live
communication is clearly a goal, right? And
Mhm.
how we get there in all these various aspects is the second question.
Well, again, the website is the
Yeah,
key
if we would,
tool
right.
for all this to be under the umbrella of, such
Yep.
that, that's the one place everybody goes when they need information about anything going on in the city and what avenues they might have,
Or they should be able to go, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the next new idea is to create a mayor's youth council to amplify the voice of Gloucester's youth in city government, foster civic engagement, and gain experience in public service.
isn't that the same as, hold on, can you scroll
Sorry.
down? Okay, no, I was thinking it was part of 2B12.
I mean, it's good to consider.
Again, just flip the sentence for me, please, where the goal is to amplify the voice of Gloucester's youth and creating a mayor's youth council is one way to do it.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that too.
So this one is consolidated, and then this one is in. Okay. So those are all in. So the next one in the middle is under upgrade public infrastructure, water, sewers, roads, schools, and recreation facilities to accommodate projected growth in demographic shifts. 2D2 is to pull 5, 10, and 20-year population projections as available and distribute them to department heads before developing the capital improvement plan.
That
So-
seems very specific. Where'd that come from?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I'd have to like go back
Yeah.
into the archives to figure out where all these things are from at this point.
So there was some additional engagement with the Capital Improvement Advisory Board, and they went into a lot of detail, which is, you know, what specific boards tend to do. But yeah, I've had some conversations with them about, you know, this is when we get down to like 2E, there's a ton of action steps in there that are just way too specific for a comprehensive plan. So I've let them know, you know, that that's not how it's going to show up in the comprehensive plan. So I think we need to talk about goal 2E, and then all these action steps would be something that the board would work on as an aside or more of like an implementation of this goal. As far
Well,
as 2D2 with the population projections, I really don't think that's a great strategy, and we should take it out. The population of Gloucester does not change very much, and
Well, it's not that the population doesn't change, but it just seems like that is a kind of a rule and reg for the capital improvement plan advisory board. Like if that's what they want to do before they make their capital improvement plan, that's what they should do. Right? Like,
yeah, I mean, there's several things that they will consider when making a capital improvement plan, but I don't think that like saying specifically population projections isn't a valuable thing to have as a
no, I know. I
highlight.
just mean it's if that's what they want to do, is who's stopping them? Like what?
Yeah, I don't know where this comes from. It's just a very specific. But I think the better thing to look at is goal 2E in terms of having a more robust capital improvement planning process, how to better, you know, utilize the capital improvement advisory board to advise the city in that process. And then everything under there is very specific that I think should be referenced outside of this plan by the Capital Improvement Advisory Board.
Okay, well, actually, I like what you just said, Alex, better than what's written there. So you said something like develop a more robust something, because again, this is super specific. So maybe it, you know, it's like, I don't know, obviously, we want to do best practices for, we want to comply with Math Department of Revenue Capital Improvement Guide best practices, but
yeah, the goal is a little too specific too.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to, you know, just work with the Capital Improvement Advisory Board to make this more consistent with the general high level kind of way to discuss this in the plan. And then these specific actions, I suggest we move past as they'll be something the board will work on as guidelines outside of this plan.
Yeah, and I wonder if the goal 2E just becomes a strategy, like almost in, oh, shoot, there's my like night vision coming on. It's a second. I hate that dark mode thing. All right. Okay. Almost in replacement of this idea, which is very specific, having a higher level strategy just related to having, the 5-year capital improvement plan or financial forecast, something like that as the actual strategy rather than a goal, if that would bring it to a higher level.
But I guess that would be, again, I think that would fall under the category of how the capital improvement, group operates themselves, right? I mean, so do we need to tell them how to operate, in this 2E thing, or you mean, again, it's wildly specific, and I think it should be sort of taken out and then taken offline with them, and then come back with a view from 10,000 feet on how they run their business, right? I mean,
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, when we're looking at the goal 2D, upgrade public infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, schools, and recreation facilities, the city needs, a really good capital improvement planning process, and that's been identified as a need. I think it's worth stating that as a strategy, and then all these specifics need to be
Yeah.
worked on
Great.
outside of the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be that
develop
we
a
just-
capital planning improvement process in accordance with best practices, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah, and then replace 2D2 with that, and then all of these specifics are outside of this plan.
It's good.
Better.
Okay, and then these
Well,
will
it can-
become,
Yeah, we don't need to spend time on those.
right, those will just get wordsmith, that's all their own policy discussions and decisions.
yes.
Okay.
Can you take out 5-year financial forecast and 5-year, just like develop a capital improvement plan process is all we want to do.
You
don't
know,
care.
I think it should be a 5-year with a limit, because I think you need to demonstrate that you're thinking ahead. And that's my preference, is to retain the 5-year, but
All right,
I defer to others.
which is again,
I think
seems so
that's
specific.
makes sense.
Fine.
Well, and that's what the best practice would say to
Yes,
do.
right,
too.
okay, totally fine.
Okay, they probably already do financial forecasts. That part.
Hope so.
Yeah, one would hope.
Okay, oh, let me highlight that green while I'm at it, just so I get consistent. Okay. All right, core theme 3. Let's see, there's just one. Okay, here's an additional strategy idea. This is under the promote the preservation of and education about local public and private historic resources. This came out of the technical working sessions to work to address the immediate needs of Gloucester archives. For example, these are specific things that they cited as needs. So I cited them as examples, but including the Gloucester archives, I know they highlighted that as something that was missing.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
No.
Two additional strategy ideas here. This is under developing an arts and culture plan for the city. Creating more public spaces for arts and cultural activities, including the repurposing of underutilized buildings and increasing, this could also be a for example, and increasing access to public buildings like the senior center or library to host events year round.
So doesn't this go with the one in section 4 that we already talked about last time? Wasn't there a big discussion about underutilized buildings or empty buildings or something?
So yes, there was one about, I interpreted that as private buildings. This is more about public buildings.
It just seems like it's the same thing. And also
Actually,
don't,
I think it was in core theme 1 now that I think about it.
okay, and don't they, do they not have access to public building spaces to host year-round events? Doesn't everybody have access to public buildings to host year-round events? I
Yeah,
realize
it's more of their drive to how they get their art seen and stuff, right? Is it up to the city to coordinate that stuff?
Well,
mean,
and I don't
they-
know that I would say that the senior center and library are underutilized, are they? I mean,
And we already have create more public spaces for art and cultural activities up there in 3C4.
that's
So
true.
that's a total
Yeah.
repeat.
So it seems like this one's redundant and
It does.
we don't
Yep.
need to include it.
Streamline permitting for arts and cultural events, though that's fair. Although it's an action item, not a goal, but. I mean, what we're saying here is support the arts in these various ways.
Yeah.
Support
Right.
and,
Well, the
and
goal
promote
is
the
to,
arts.
yeah, support the arts. Yeah.
What's the thinking behind taking out the one on DEI? 3C2, is that just a political,
It just averaged 2 in the pre-work survey. So you tell me.
okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't answer a lot of the pre-work survey because I didn't understand what it meant. Well, okay.
So
Well, we
does the
do
planning board
rather,
want to
first of all,
discuss
it
this?
doesn't, first of all, it doesn't have a whole lot to do with the arts and culture.
No, it
plan.
doesn't.
But there is another strategy tangentially related to that in the core theme 2 under the staffing, which is to evaluate the city's hiring practices for inclusivity, for example, conducting a diversity audit, related strategic plan and staff training. So it's not necessarily like hiring a whole new person, but it is about evaluating current practices.
That feels to me adequate for the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's more appropriate to better understand what the city's practices are before you dedicate a position and, put somebody into a role where they don't have the ability to really know what they'd be working on or what success looks like. So I think the first step really is more of an assessment and an audit of practices.
Well, and this is a politically hot topic right now, and I just think we should. No, I mean, let's be honest about it. This comprehensive plan is to have more legs than just the next 6 months or a year. I think
Right.
taking it out here, there's nothing that stops us in this community or in the state to practicing DEI, regardless of what the political situation at the national level is. Why have the controversy? Just take it out.
All right, and then the last new strategy idea here is to complete a needs analysis of the creative community, including existing arts and culture organizations and practicing artists to better understand the creative ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
For who?
Yeah, who's gonna do that?
Yeah, it makes me actually think that that's something that would be done as a part of an arts and culture plan overall. Like if you were at,
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that plan would probably be overseen by the Committee for the Arts, but it's pretty much the same as the goal.
mhm.
Yeah, that's true. It is.
So we're thinking this is kind of
Just redundant.
redundant, yeah. Okay. Moving right along. So advancing heritage tourism opportunities, especially in fishing, the arts, and early colonial history in harmony with the community. Partnering with local public and private arts and culture organizations to encourage cultural programming in public spaces, like hosting park events. For example, Prescott Park Arts Festival.
Okay, so again, flip the sentence because the goal is to encourage cultural programming in public places. For example, by partnering with local blah blah. Right. it troubles me when a lot of these ones say partner with public and, partner with any organization, because I don't want to give a mandate to the city to go around partnering with every Tom, Dick, and Harry that's running around wanting to do various things, because it might cost us money. And so,
And that might be a Chamber of Commerce function,
yeah.
just saying.
Well, do you want to take it out?
Well, I think this plan is just a broad brush general statement is very heavy on the arts. Right, and so, the more broad statements and, planning from 10,000 feet, again, support the arts, and how do you do that, right? And so there's enormous amount of language around it. I'm not against it, but I'm saying that there are other, constituents in the city that probably would read this and say, hey, well, what about us, right?
I wonder if 3D3 and 3D4 could be combined. In addition to marketing strategies, also programming.
3D2 improve the harbor walk?
Walking app. I didn't know there was a walking app.
It's,
On the
we're
website,
not
Doug?
doing a good job at communication.
I don't know. Maybe I'll go look at the city website.
I don't think that has anything to do with 3D2.
Were you suggesting combining 3D3 and 3D4? Or
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I said
Sorry,
two.
did I misspeak? I meant 3D3 and 3D4.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Any way we can make this, and if Alex, if you go through it, wordsmithing, you can probably make that
yeah,
kind of stuff
we'll
even tighter,
yeah, we can address things like that too. It's just
Yeah.
definitely an administrative thing.
Yep. Oh gosh, problem is I have my heads in front of my word I'm typing. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, so 2 additional strategy ideas to rank and discuss. One is evaluate improved amenities for public events such as restrooms. And one is to build on Gloucester's strengths, a number of these tourism type organizations that you have, to create a program to guide people coming to the city by cruise ships and buses to popular tourist locations.
So this is about tourism. This is about promoting tourism. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these seem like action items, but they're also good to do.
Well, I think if you're hosting an event and or you've got to provide bathrooms, right? It's probably a Board of Health issue, right? I mean, we don't have to have it in the master plan to say you have to have porta potties for your next jazz festival, right? Sorry.
Yeah, that's like
and
a day-to-day function that, so some input,
Yeah.
I think, on day-to-day functions that we received as a part of comprehensive plan meetings. So agreed. I think 3D8 is a good strategy to have in there though.
I
but
agree.
I guess my opinion here is that there's multiple groups that stand on their own, and not just the chamber and not just Discover Gloucester or Maritime Gloucester, that they don't have any necessarily reporting obligations to the city. They have their own agendas, they have their own plans, and sometimes they don't all line up, right? And so, if you're thinking about, any of these folks and trying to wrangle them into a room to say we want to be on the same page, I think they're gonna, there'd be a philosophical difference, and that's just my opinion. But, And every time you turn around, there seems to be another, promote downtown, rebuild Roger Street, all these things. And I've only been listening to them for 20 years. And they're only interested in their sidewalk bazaar, their, block party or whatever, right? And so I don't know how you unite that group into a citywide plan.
This
right?
doesn't say you have to unite them. It just is, I think it's a good goal to create a program to guide people, to give them more information to come to the city.
I mean, does this one also touch on like perhaps, like with the buses to popular locations, like if Stage 4, or if there's some kind of like, like Rockport has, where there's like a satellite parking lot to bring people via bus downtown, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think this goal is about really capturing the benefits of tourism and all that, and how important that is for businesses and people here in Gloucester, but also doing that in harmony with the community that lives here year round. And the Welcome Center as a city entity, the Greater Cape Ann Chamber and the Maritime Gloucester Discover Gloucester are really important partners that the city has relationships that work on these different things. And I think the city's role is really the convener to see, who can be most beneficial in what area, and to really connect the dots on, okay, if we have people coming in on cruise ships, and we have people coming in on buses, how do we get them around to the important places of the city?
I think we should leave it in.
Yeah, it
Anyone
was
else?
something that was talked about a lot when I was on the what was that board? Downtown Development Committee? Can't remember what that was, but it was
The
they
committee for
spoke
everything.
about this, trying to coordinate all these different things, often like Rick is saying. It's constantly they try to do that.
Yeah,
Kind
I
of
think
in their own world.
Yeah, I think kind of the issue that Brick's pointing out is that they are kind of disparate, and it would be better if it was more unified to utilize all those resources to really make it clear to people who are coming to Gloucester, like, hey, welcome, here's where you should go, recognizing tourism is important, and recognizing we want to manage that so that the people living here are really, not, experiencing, the unintended effects of that, but really benefiting from it.
Why don't we say something like encourage, them working in conjunction with each other or something like that, so that, you're encouraging them to act together. I don't know.
Well, the thing is that, so we permitted a cruise terminal in Gloucester, however many years ago, 10 years ago, let's say, for example. And the downstairs room, which was a port of entry, was turned into a bar. And then we decided that we're going to close the permit on the thing unless you turned it into what it was supposed to be. And, we have cruise boats that come into town, and there's nobody there to welcome the people. I mean, there used to be, right? And, people would stand there and hand out flyers and, take a right, not a left, and, and those types of things. But again, if people weren't seeing the benefit of it, then they're not going to do it, right? And so, and then, shop owners are closed, right? How do you get the downtown marketing, whatever, to say, why don't you stay open for 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon when there's a cruise ship in town, right? I mean, so it again, it's a nice idea, but it's people are voting with their feet, not with their heads.
But Rick, this is the place for nice ideas. This is a good idea.
Okay,
I think we should leave it in and move on.
great.
But does anyone else, Doug or Beverly? David?
Well, like I said, to leave it in, but just say encourage it, and that's, fine. Don't.
Right, don't mandate.
There's no building going on, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
You're encouraging them to work in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, no, you could, keep it, build on Gloucester's strengths, and then to encourage something, a joint program.
Yeah.
Okay. Goal 3E, improve community appearance through beautification and public art projects with particular attention to entry points. Several of these are still in the middle. One is to create, maintain, and regularly update a consolidated inventory of city-owned art, including necessary maintenance.
So I thought the the Commission for Public Art or whatever they're called was already doing that.
They did this. I think it'd be more about maintaining and updating it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, isn't that their charter? In their
Ye-
charter?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know if it needs to be, if it
Yeah,
rises to a high level strategy of a
this
comp
is,
plan.
mm-mm.
So already being done, basically.
Yeah. Or if that's what they want to do, I don't know if they're maintaining it, but if that's what they want to do, they should do it.
All right, another one is identifying potential spaces such as Grant and Blackburn circles or existing infrastructure that could be activated with both temporary and permanent public art, cultural programming, and native landscaping.
Could we just say empower this, whatever the committee is exactly called, which I forget, to do these things?
I think this one, it should be more of a general conversation about placemaking and branding the city at key entry points. Like, I don't think we need to call out specific rotaries and what specifically should be done there. It's just recognizing there are places that people come into the city from that has an effect on how they view Gloucester and where they end up going, and the people who come in and out, to really just make sure we're putting resources into making those places as nice and friendly as possible and speaking to Gloucester.
I would agree with that.
I
Yeah,
would
me
agree.
too.
And I think there's should be a concept here of active and passive. For example, you really cannot have active activities on Grant and Blackburn circles because it's not a safe space to get into from, because the rotaries make it very difficult to use. You're not going to put you're not going to put a playground in the middle of Grant because people can't get there safely, but you can use it as a place for a lovely garden or public art that is more passive than active in nature. Not that this has to address that, but I just want to be clear. Our circles really do have some limitations for this kind of activity.
Yeah, Grand Circle is they've done a great job with that recently. That the landscaping there is awesome. You know, would somebody like to put a huge sculpture or something in the middle of it? Maybe.
Oh.
And if that was to happen, you'd have to go, there's a lot someone would have to get people on board with in order to do something like that. Right?
But
Yeah, that's
still,
why we leave those specifics to implementation and we
Yeah.
just
Right.
talk about making entry points to the city.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
That's
Keep
what I
it
was
simple.
gonna say is, emphasizing gateways to the city.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's a very good goal or strategy.
Just as a side note, we have friends that were a part of at least the first circle improvements, and they got negative feedback saying that, why are we trying to make it look nice?
Can't please everybody.
Apparently.
well, they're an enormous amount of land that is underutilized because of access, and so you want to be able to put them to best practices use, and most of that is primarily visual and passive as opposed to active.
All right.
All right, then we have evaluate dedicating 1% of municipal project construction costs for developing public artwork.
What does that all mean? Percent of municipal
That's why I
project-
didn't answer it on the survey.
Municipal project construction costs.
Right, so if you're doing a new major municipal construction project, the cost, like you're making a new building or you're expanding or renovating something that's large, 1% of the construction costs for that would be dedicated to developing a public artwork component of that municipal project.
This is
If
what
that's my
Cambridge
interpretation.
does, right, Laura?
I believe that's true, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of states require this. I mean, doesn't 1% for art seem familiar language? It certainly is to me.
Yeah. But is it just municipal projects or is it, major developments? Where,
It's just
Municipal.
Often it applies for major private developments, but it's a matter of different states' laws and so on, and I can't speak to Massachusetts.
It's almost like a design standard, but it's a whole nother issue.
It's
Yeah, and you can incorporate it into your code as a design standard. That one of the things you need to do under design is to demonstrate the public art that you have provided.
I mean, you're
But-
just asking someone to evaluate it. So if that's a standard practice in other places, that's not a bad idea, right?
Yeah, but it seems to be a Community Preservation Act, 2.0 for the arts, right?
Yeah, but is that our decision to make?
Well, I don't know, right? I mean, and so so if we built a $25 million library, that's $250,000 on top of the 2.5 or 25 million. And so where does that money come from, and where does it go to, right?
It's not necessarily in addition to, it's 99% goes to building the building and 1% as part of the building design incorporates art.
Yeah, and Community Preservation Act funds would only be used for art if it was also part of one of the other, like historic preservation or something like that.
I guess my point is that it's a 1% tax on building something, and then that money is derived to, some sort of, art enterprise fund, right? I mean, I guess we can leave it in as, evaluate the opportunity for something like that, but to me, it's additional monies going to one specific entity or group.
I suppose it could be structured like, as you said, that if it could be for it doesn't have to be for that municipal project. It could be put into an enterprise fund for public art on public land, for the public benefit, so to speak.
You could do that, but typically the 1% is part of the project that's under consideration, but you certainly could, in the same way that if you don't build housing on site, you put the money for it in a fund. So.
But
Right,
who's
kind
gonna
of
monitor that or give out those funds, and who's gonna make those decisions?
So I think what Beverly was indicating is that it is common practice. So if you build a library, you use 1% of whatever that structure is for public art display. If I'm misinterpreting, please correct me, Beverly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with creating another tax, a 1% tax on anything that's getting built.
But that's not how it's applied at all, in my experience.
Well, that's
exactly as you've described it.
Right.
99% for the building, and of that 100%, 1% goes to some kind of art, artistic, and it's not necessarily an add-on. It could come incorporated into the design of the building, right? So
well, I mean, you walk down any hallway in the library or in the hospital, you can't get rid of the public art, right? So I think that's already been done, being done. But if you wanted to, enter in new language, then I'm content with that.
Me too. So what Beverly said.
So we're changing language. I'm sorry.
You leave
So
it in,
we're leaving it
basically.
in, it sounds like, evaluate dedicating 1%
Yeah.
of municipal project construction costs for developing
Exactly.
artwork.
Yeah, it's very specific.
Yeah.
That 99% of it goes through the building and 1% of it has to be, as
Mhm.
opposed to in the approval process, to show
Mhm.
some kind of artistic contribution. I wouldn't necessarily put it 99%, but that's the intent.
Right.
I just leave a 1% for art. I think that's what people understand. It's a pretty broadly accepted
Mm.
concept in urban design.
Yeah. I'll just.
Paraphrase. And I would definitely lose the word cost.
I'm sorry, what about the word cost? You want to?
Well, I think 1% for art, leaves it broad enough to say, covers what Beverly's saying, 1% of the building is dedicated to public art. And cost implies that there's some money going to be collected and then redistributed.
No, it's incorporated in the cost. It has nothing to do with another 1% of being contributed or from a fund. It's part of the construction cost. And that's what this says. And that's the most straightforward way of doing it, because if we do it the way, like it could go to a fund that the city arts committee does, that's a whole lot more. 1% for art is exactly what it is. That 1% of the construction cost goes for something that is considered to be of artistic merit.
So is that evaluating it or considering it?
Well, it's requiring it in the sense, we may say consider adopting regulation that requires the contribution of 1% of the cost of building municipal to public art.
I guess it's like consider adopting a policy that.
Yeah,
that
I think
Yes,
so.
requires
that's
Well,
right.
and not just a policy, I think it would have to be legislation, but. And then the architectural merit of that art is something done through design review, project review.
All right. One additional strategy idea is to consider city ordinance changes, researching state and local laws to give the Committee for the Arts the authority to establish criteria for public art installations on city-owned land.
So for this one, it's much too specific on the Committee for the Arts. The decision about granting that authority needs to be made by an administration based on many different factors, but I think that the strategy should say review ordinances for boards and committees to make sure that they align with the goals of this plan and what those committees are trying to accomplish.
I would
And-
agree with you.
And then leave those decisions to the decision makers.
Great.
So the whole art installation city on land, take that out. It's really about like, does their ordinance give them the ability to accomplish their mission? Does it give them the ability to implement the goals of this plan?
I'll just say missions for now. Accomplish. To ensure consistency with accomplishing. In that case, I don't think it goes in this goal anymore. It probably goes in core theme 2 somewhere.
Yeah.
Take out the word changes in there too.
Yeah, we'll just take care of it.
Yeah, we'll have to, this is still the messy first draft on that strategy. Okay. All right, so are we almost through? Yeah, I think we're almost through core theme 3. Most of these are green, so it's just down to the last couple here. So under maintain environmental quality by exceeding state and national air, water, noise, pollution, and littering standards, there's a couple of additional strategy ideas that the Open Space and Rec Committee had. One is to coordinate with the city to work toward a commitment and time frame to close and relocate the compost facility currently sited within Dogtown and restore the area with native species.
Where would the compost area go? I don't know. I don't know that would take some evaluation. I don't know why the compost area would need to be removed, or why it's bad where it is, or where it would go, or how much it would cost to do any of those things.
Eric, do you have any additional information about this? I think Eric was the one who did the follow-up with the open space committee, so.
Well, I think it was a goal. What I've heard folks say about this is that, you know, one of the entrances to Dogtown is the compost facility.
Yeah, I think that's what it
Right.
was about, is it's
And-
not a welcoming
And
way
it
to
is not
enter.
a welcoming way to
Yeah.
enter Dogtown. And there was also, I think there was a project that came before us once before off the exit that goes to the elementary school in West Gloucester, that there's a landscaping site in there
Right.
where they already have, you know, storage of trucks and things like that, that might be a more appropriate site than the current site where the composting operation is. I think it was more about improving the entrance to Dogtown.
So maybe the goal is evaluate appropriateness for current compost site.
And
And
potential other spots, yeah.
And I guess it's also like from a strategic standpoint to make the entrance to Dogtown more welcoming.
Yeah, and yeah.
There's several different entrances, but like the primary one off of Cherry Street, so maybe it has to be because that's where like a lot of public parking is, but there's also like a gun range and you hear it, so it's, you know, I do think it's at the Dogtown Road entrance, I would say.
Yeah, and this is a classic case of the flipping, right? Because it's like we
Mhm.
want to make the entrance to Dogtown more
Right.
welcoming, such
Yes.
as
Right.
take care of these issues.
Yep, I agree with that.
That's exactly what it is. But and the compost has to be included in that, but make the entrance to Dogtown more welcoming. Evaluate the current compost facility. Yep.
It's the lead so that it shows the emphasis. It's not on the compost, it's on the,
Yeah, and I think we need to say make the entrance to Dogtown from off Cherry Street, right? Because there are multiple entrances.
Yeah.
Maybe say
There's some.
all entrances into there.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Why not make all entrances welcoming and parking friendly?
So that next one on 3F11, that's very good, but that's really the open space and rec committee work. I don't think it's a strategy for a conflict.
Agreed.
Yep.
This kind of predated that, or it was happening kind of the same time East Gloucester School was being discussed. So I think that's how this made it in here, because there actually is a design plan. It's just the costs have risen substantially, and there was a loan order taken out to demolish it. But that this strategy happened, so yeah, scratching it is probably good.
Okay. So then we're in the home stretch. The only thing left to discuss are a few straggling ones in core theme 4. So under goal 4D, it's invest in healthy aging across the lifespan for Gloucester's residents through public health initiatives, active recreational opportunities, and health equity programming to reduce health disparities. The one that's still in the middle has to do with healthy aging recreational programming at the senior center, like gentle yoga and Zumba for all ages. Does the senior center not already?
I think they do, but also it's an action item, not a goal, so.
They were
Exactly.
too specific.
It's a level of specificity that's not
The
necessary.
strategies,
Exactly.
I was gonna say, most senior centers that I know of already do
Exactly.
regular that exercise
You know, like
programs.
chair yoga and all of that. Yeah, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
As does the YMCA, by the way.
Okay, so I think these are. This one's, is this highlighted? Oh, we already,
So
did that.
for 4C7,
Yeah.
you know, this came up just today in community development where community organization wanted to find information about setting up a summer camp, and there's no Parks and Rec department. So, you know, do we want to have a strategy that says, let's create a Parks and Rec department, and in the meantime, utilize the open space committee to create this information in absence of one? But I mean, in terms of a 10-year vision, I think there's a lot of benefits to having an actual department that
Yeah, there
facilitates.
is a strategy already
So
related.
that's already in there.
It
So
was,
then,
it was earlier. It
Yeah.
was
so then maybe tack 4C7 into that to say, like, kind of in lieu of that, utilize the open space committee to provide this information.
And in the scheme of things, if a park department were developed, then the OSRC would be its public, you know, its citizen committee.
Yeah.
Certainly for a community that has so much open space, that not have a parks department is somewhat of a lapse.
Okay.
Okay, so and 4C6 looks like it's, I think.
Or
In,
C6?
E6.
I'm
It's
wondering if
green.
that was already discussed or something, why it's highlighted, sort of highlighted yellow, but still green.
Well,
think
that, weren't we talking about this one before? I
I
mean,
think so. I
why
think
don't we
that's probably why
combine
it's
it?
there, yeah.
Combine it with the Dogtown one to say, and the OSRC doesn't have to be called out. If that's, again, if this is something the OSRC wants to do, they should just do it, right?
Well,
Um,
and in the implementation matrix, when we're talking about like responsible parties and stuff, we can list them as one of, you know.
Yeah, sure. But also you could combine it with Dogtown to say, year-round safe. Well, maybe not, but anyway, you're talking about the same thing. And I guess they have a specific problem because vehicles are riding on and damaging the fields. I mean, that's just a, you know,
Law enforcement.
security, a law
That's
enforcement
also,
issue,
yeah, it's
right?
a police matter.
So,
It's a hot topic because Magnolia Woods has had some problems.
right, so, but shouldn't it just be,
I think this is probably all kind of specific.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Maybe this Dogtown gets added into this strategy, because I actually think the Dogtown one fits a little better into goal 4D than it does into the other one, which has more to do with air and water quality things.
yeah, I think it's about just making entry points to parks and places where people recreate welcoming and safe.
mhm.
I think in
I guess that's why I was
4C6,
stumbling around saying it's kind of the same as the
Yeah,
Dogtown one.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's confusing though, because you've got 4D. These goals underneath should be 4D1 and D2, not E. That's what's
Yes, yes,
confusing.
yes, yes. There's some
Numbering
obviously
issues.
Yeah,
there's some
and then
cleanup that has to
yeah,
happen.
you need
after
cleanup,
that.
because then you go to this new 4E and it has its own set.
Yeah, and so if we could just say 4E, all of those are specific action items that should not be strategies in a comp plan.
Yeah, I think we should take
Except the one that is crossed out, I'm curious about that one. That
It's
might
more
be
efficient,
a
more-
strategy.
That's
creating more-
definitely a strategy.
That
Yeah,
was
C6.
not listed as one that folks wanted to discuss. I think my interpretation of that was they saw it as the idea of a new building, a new community center, a new expanded Rose Baker Senior Center as being
A bridge too far.
too far.
You know,
Yeah, but
this
you can
is-
have intergenerational activities and encourage that as a social policy and not necessarily have it done in a building. I mean, you can do it through parks programs and do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just tying it to a specific building seems rather odd.
Okay.
Wait,
I mean-
I don't agree with taking out monitoring wastewater diseases. That is definitely something we should be doing.
They do that every month, Jane, right? I mean.
Okay, so
It's
we don't need
required
to
by
say
state law.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
It's required
So
by
water
state.
quality is tested,
Yeah.
throughout the city at 43 different spaces, right? As a regular.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
But that's governed by state law.
What
so-
about a cumulative health impact study? I guess that's either, I don't know why the EMP, I mean, I understand about some sort of health study related to maybe trying to tailor health programming or something. But I don't, health impact study, that's more of an EPA is like environmental and usually pertains to something that's your concern is polluting.
Well, but there are standards for healthy communities that involve the number of miles of sidewalks so that it facilitates walking. And that's kind of what a health impact analysis is whether or not the physical infrastructure encourages healthy living. That's what I understood it to be. Now, I don't know if the EPA is responsible for that. I've heard about it, but not enough to know about it. Heard of it, but I don't know exactly what it is.
Before we move off of 4C6, I think we should add in to provide year-round safe access and security, because I think that the issue is remote security.
Safe access and security.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll add in about welcoming and Dogtown and stuff in there and take off the yeah, so that's going to be wordsmith. I'll just mark it here. Smooth that. All right. Well, we have you've done it. We are through.
Finally.
I mean, congratulations. We now know for now what's in and what's out, enough to move on to the next steps. And I know I'll work with staff offline here on any of that wordsmithing nuances, but I think it was really helpful to have the broader discussion about policy and what makes sense to have kind of in and out. And that's, when you get down to those last middle ones, it can be, kind of tricky. So thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you, Lauren. Laura.
That's all I had for tonight.
All right. We got one more agenda on our item this evening. So Eric, do you have a copy of the minutes from the 16th?
Yes, I do. 1 second here.
I read them and had
Green here.
no comments.
All right.
I don't think I was there on the 16th.
Oh, except for that.
You weren't, yeah, you were not. So we'll have to, you were absent. Yep.
This is February? No.
No,
January.
January 16th, the last meeting.
Are there enough of us here to vote for it? There are 4 of us.
Yes. There should be 5, right? 1, 2,
No, I couldn't make a motion.
Yeah, because David can't do it.
to-
But 4 is still a majority, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Especially because we're down one member, is it not?
Yeah. But Beverly, were you here last meeting?
We
Yes,
left
you
the
were.
18th.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were remote, right?
Yep.
Beverly? Yeah.
I don't remember being remote. Oh, I don't know if I was remote, but I was here. I didn't leave till Saturday the 18th. Frankly, I can't remember.
So
go to
did I
so
see,
many meetings.
did I see member Rosen makes a motion to?
Yeah.
He wasn't
That's
here.
supposed to be Cook.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have agreed for Cook to do. Remember Cook to be the new Hank.
We fought tooth and nail and we decided to be a round robin thing.
That's
Okay.
right. We did, didn't we?
Those are the two
Okay.
directions.
I move that we approve the minutes of January 16, 2025 as amended.
Motion by
Excuse me.
I'll second.
very good. Thank you, Doug. Seconded by Doug Cook. Roll call vote, please.
All right, Chairman Noonan,
Yes.
Member Bookin,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Remsen,
Yes,
and
that's all.
that's it.
Okay.
Make a
Alex,
motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
yes, thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. I need a second, please.
Second.
And that was from Beverly? Or,
That was Beverly.
Okay, that was
thank
Bevan.
you.
Really? Yeah.
We have a motion to adjourn, seconded by Beverly Bookins. Roll call vote, please.
Yep. Chairman Newman,
You.
Chairman Noonan, sorry. Member Bookin,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Remsen,
Yes.
Member Rosen.
Disappeared. Thank you, Catherine.
Okay,
for
well-
being there. So, Alex, I'm approving 17 minutes of overtime for Catherine, okay?
You got it.
All right, everyone, take care.
Okay.
See you
Bye.
again. See you
Thank you.
soon.